I had to get some blood drawn last week. The phlebotomist, the person who draws the blood, had my chart in front of her. My name, my birthday, my orders. That's it. She had no idea who I was outside of that. Never heard of ICMM that I know of. Never heard of this podcast. No idea I've spent the better part of a year talking about living life on purpose. I asked how she was doing. Just small talk. The kind you make while someone's tying a tourniquet around your arm. She said, "I'm having a great day." And then she just kept going, completely unprompted. She said, there's all this stuff out there about loving your life, building your dream life. People who call themselves experts on it, who say you have to have a plan and do these specific things to be happy. But I think sometimes the key is you just need to live your life because you really don't know what you want. You don't know what you're supposed to do. And you definitely don't know what's going to happen. Take me, she said. I was living a fun life, lots of friends, doing a lot of things. And then I got pregnant at 19, which would have stopped most people cold. But I learned my lessons. And now I'm 40, and I've learned what I needed to learn. And now I'm finally starting to ask myself what I actually want in my dream life. But I think you have to learn the lessons first. I think all the experts skip that part. I honestly haven't stopped thinking about it since. Because she was right. And more specifically, she was right about something I've been circling for months without landing on the actual words for it. You just need to actively live your life because you really don't know what you want, what you're supposed to do, or what's going to happen. Welcome back to ICMM Living Life Unpaused, the podcast version. I'm your host, Abby Ventrilo. If you're new here, this is the show where we talk about living your life actively by intentionally choosing one daily thing to move your life forward. Last week, I talked about the importance of doing things for yourself and making sure you were building the life you wanted. That didn't change because of the conversation I had while getting my blood drawn. Although I did find it very ironic that I had just recorded that episode. Today, I want to talk about something that phlebotomist handed me without knowing it. This episode. The difference between building your dream life and actively living your life. And what happens to a plan, your dream, you, when life changes on you. There's a whole industry, and I say this with love because I've bought plenty of what it's selling, that's built around the idea that you can and should know exactly what you want. Identify the vision, build the plan, execute the plan, manifest it, vision board it, 5-year plan it. Know your dream life, then go get it. I'm not here to torch that industry. I love a plan. I love a goal. If you listen to more than one episode of this show, you already know I'm fully capable of turning a Tuesday into a personal development seminar for an audience of one. I've done an episode on this exact thing. I believe in setting intentions. I believe in deciding what you want and what you don't want. I am not 4 minutes into this episode suddenly anti-plan. But here's what I've been sitting with since that appointment, and honestly since the last week. That whole model assumes you already know enough to build an accurate plan in the first place. And a lot of the time, you just don't. Not because you're behind or doing life wrong or need to buy one more course to figure it out. You don't know yet because you haven't lived enough yet to know what you want. That phlebotomist wasn't bitter about it either, and I think that part matters. She wasn't sitting there going, life doesn't work out anyway, so why bother planning? She was having a great day. She was getting ready to travel. She was, by every measure, someone actively enjoying her life. She also happened to be someone who got a piece of enormous unplanned information at 19, a pregnancy that wasn't on any vision board, at least not then. And instead of that ending her story, it became the first real data she ever had about her own life. She lived it, she learned from it, and now at 40, she's finally asking the question the industry tells you to ask first. What do I actually want? She did it backwards, according to the industry. Lived first, planned second. And she seemed a lot more at peace with her life than plenty of people I know who did it in the correct order. So here's the line I want to draw under today, because I think it's the whole episode in one sentence. There's a difference between living your dream life and living your life actively. But I don't think they're opposing ideas. I think one gets you to the other. You actively live your life to figure out what your dream life actually is. Living your dream life implies a finish line, a destination you're either at or not at yet. Living your life actively, unpaused, means you're a participant in it while it's still unfolding. And there's another reason I think that distinction matters. How many times have we heard some version of the story about the person who decided success was the goal, put their head down, worked harder than everybody else, climbed every rung of the ladder, and finally made it all the way to the top, only to look around and realized they sacrificed everything else in their life to get there? It's practically the plot of every Hallmark Christmas movie ever made. She has the corner office, she has the fabulous apartment, she has an assistant who keeps reminding her she hasn't been home for Christmas in 8 years. And apparently all she needs is to get stranded in a charming small town with a suspiciously attractive Christmas tree farmer to realize she's missed the entire point of being alive. Hallmark has made approximately 14,000 movies out of this, so maybe they're onto something. But underneath the cliche is something that's actually true. You can successfully execute a plan that builds only one part of your life. You can be so focused on getting the promotion that you stop investing in your relationships. You can become so focused on making money that you never give yourself time to enjoy any of it. You can be so committed to building the business, losing the weight, getting the degree, buying the house, whatever your particular finish line is, that everything else becomes something you'll get back to after you get there. And then you get there. And sometimes you realize you didn't build your dream life. You built your dream career, or your dream bank account, or your dream body, or your dream house. And those aren't the same thing, because your life isn't one goal. That's actually part of what I mean when I say you have to actively live your life in order to discover your dream life. You have to stay awake to all of it while you're building any one part of it. The people you love, your health, your friendships, your finances, your work, your fun, the things that make you feel like yourself. One thing can absolutely be your focus right now. That's basically the entire premise of ICMM. But focus and sacrifice aren't the same thing. You can give something priority without handing it your entire life. And maybe that's another danger of getting too attached to the plan. You become so focused on whether you're making progress toward the destination that you stop noticing what the journey there is costing you. You make choices, you pay attention, you learn things, you change your mind when the new information warrants it. You don't outsource your decisions to a 5-year-old plan just because it happens to be the plan you already made. And here's the part I really want to land. You also don't expect the version of you who made that plan to have gotten it right. 25-year-old you did not have the information 47-year-old you has. Honestly, some weeks, last Tuesday you didn't have the information today you has. That's not a flaw in the plan. That's just what it is to be a person moving through time. And maybe that's the piece we've gotten backwards. We keep talking about building your dream life as though step 1 is figuring out exactly what that life looks like. Step 2 is making the plan, and step 3 is executing it until you eventually arrive there. But I don't think that's actually how most of us find our dream life. I think you have to actively live your life in order to discover it. You have to try things and hate them, try things and unexpectedly love them, meet people who change what you thought you wanted, lose things you were absolutely certain you needed, get opportunities you never knew existed, have seasons where something matters enormously to you, and other seasons where it just doesn't anymore. That's not getting distracted from building your dream life. That's how you gather the information required to build one. So yes, decide what you want. Make the vision board. Set the goal. Make the 5-year plan if you want one. But then go live. Because your actual life is going to give you information your plan never could. And when it does, you're allowed to update the plan. That's not failing to follow through. That's paying attention. We love a good plan because it makes us feel safe. And I want to be honest about how that shows up for me specifically, because I think it's more relatable than if I kept this abstract. When my life gets chaotic, when I don't have the answers to something, I get the sudden, overwhelming urge to organize. I will go clean out a junk drawer I haven't opened in 3 years. Casey's watched me do this enough times now that he can basically predict it. Something hard is happening, and within about 48 hours, I am elbow deep in a drawer full of dead batteries and takeout menus, sorting it with the focus of a surgeon. Just this last week, I cleaned and organized my office, something I apparently hadn't done in this decade, based on what I found. But it's not really about the drawer. It's that the drawer is something I can control when a lot of the rest of my life is very much not under my control right now. A plan does the same thing on a bigger scale. A plan is a drawer for your whole life. It's soothing precisely because it promises you don't have to sit in the not knowing. And to be clear again, I'm not telling you to stop making plans. I love plans. Set the goals, write the intentions, manifest away if that's your language for it. Decide what you want and what you don't want. Know which direction you're generally trying to head. None of that is the problem. The problem is when the plan stops being a direction and starts being a promise. When it quietly shifts from here's where I'm currently aiming to here's what's supposed to happen and anything else is a failure. That shift is subtle. It doesn't announce itself. But it's the difference between a plan that can flex with new information and a plan that snaps the second life hands you something it didn't account for. And I think that's why changing the plan can feel so much harder than making one. Because somewhere along the way, we start treating the plan like a contract we signed with the previous version of ourselves. I said I was going to do this. I told people I was going to do this. I spent money on this. I've already put 3 years of my life into this. This was supposed to happen by 40. This was supposed to be my career. This was supposed to be the relationship. And suddenly we're not asking, does this still make sense with what I know now? We're asking, how do I avoid looking like I failed? And those are very different questions. There is no prize for staying loyal to outdated information. If the facts change, the plan should be allowed to change with them. Otherwise, you're not following a plan anymore. You're obeying one. Here's the reframe I want to offer, because I think it's the one that actually holds up under pressure. Uncertainty isn't an argument for recklessness. It's an argument for participation. Those get confused with each other constantly. If you can't know exactly what's coming, Some people hear that as permission to stop altogether. Burn it all down. Do whatever. Who cares? And that's not what I'm saying. And it's not what the phlebotomist was saying either. The answer to "you don't fully know what you want yet" isn't recklessness. It's staying present enough, awake enough in your own life to actually catch the information when it shows up. Recklessness closes your eyes and hopes for the best, or possibly even worse, autopilot, when you just let things happen and only respond. Participation keeps your eyes open the entire time. I want to push on a word we throw around a lot when a plan doesn't go the way we expected: a detour. We say it like it's a mistake, a wrong turn, time we're not getting back, spent somewhere we weren't supposed to be. But I want to offer a different read on some of the things you might be filing under detour in your own life. What if some of what you're calling a detour was actually data? The job that didn't work out, the relationship that ended, the city you moved to and hated, or the one you moved to on a whim and never left, the business that folded, the health issue that rearranged your priorities, whether you asked it to or not, the thing you were sure you'd love and didn't, the thing you tried completely by accident and couldn't stop thinking about it afterward. You weren't necessarily off course. You were learning something the version of you who made the original plan simply didn't know yet, couldn't have known yet, because that information didn't exist for you until you lived your way into it. This is where I think the detour framing quietly does us harm, because it assumes there was a correct route the whole time, and you got knocked off of it. But if you genuinely didn't have enough information to plan accurately in the first place, which again is most of us, most of the time, about most of the big things in life, then there wasn't a correct route sitting there waiting for you to find it. There was just the route you were on and what it taught you and where you go next with what you now know. We are generally obsessed with knowing what we want, and a lot of the time we simply don't have enough information yet to know it accurately. So life gives us the information. The lessons aren't detours from the dream life. They're part of how you actually find out what the dream life is. And the plan is supposed to evolve as you do, not stay frozen at the version of you who wrote it. Maybe we're putting too much pressure on ourselves to build the dream life, and not nearly enough emphasis on actually experiencing the life we're already in. I want to get specific for a minute, because everything I've said so far could still sound a little theoretical if I don't. These last few weeks have changed my plans enormously. Some of it is small, my content schedule, what I was supposed to originally record this week versus what you're actually hearing. Some of it is bigger. I'm dealing with some health changes that might end up being long-term, and I'm still in the middle of figuring out what that actually means. And then there's something else that happened this week. Our family experienced a sudden and devastating loss. I'm intentionally not going to say much more than that here, partly because it isn't solely my story to tell, and partly because I never want someone's tragedy to become content for this show. But it would also feel dishonest to sit here talking to you about what happens when life changes the plan and pretend that it hasn't affected the way I'm thinking about every word I'm saying to you today. It has. There are things that change the plan because we change our minds. There are things that change because we get new information. There are things that change because our bodies, our jobs, our relationships, or our circumstances require us to make a different choice. And then there are moments when life changes something that cannot be changed back. I'm not going to turn that into a lesson. There isn't a silver lining I'm looking for, and there isn't some inspirational meaning I need to assign to it. But it has made one thing I've said on this show many times feel considerably less theoretical to me this week. We do not get to control everything that happens in our lives. We do get to decide whether we're present for the life we have while living it. And right now, for me, being present means allowing something incredibly sad to simply be incredibly sad. It means being there for people I love. It means letting some things that seemed urgent 2 weeks ago suddenly not be urgent at all. It also means recognizing that I don't want fear or grief to make every other part of my life go dark indefinitely. Some things need to pause. Some things should pause. But I still want to be here for my life. Not because something terrible happened and therefore I need to live every day like it's my last. I'm not saying YOLO. I actually don't think that's a particularly sustainable way to live. I want to live actively because this is my life, and that's enough reason. So make the plan, please. Still make the plan. Just don't get so loyal to it that you stop paying attention to your actual life while you're supposedly out there living it. A changed plan often requires a pause. That's not a failure. You get bad news, something falls through, your health changes, someone needs you. You realize the thing you'd been working toward for years isn't actually what you want anymore. In any of those moments, the right response isn't to immediately turn it into a lesson, build a new 5-year plan on the spot, or prove how resilient you are on a deadline. Sometimes you genuinely just need a minute. Sometimes life hits pause for you. Sometimes you hit pause yourself. And sometimes that is exactly precisely what you need. But eventually, we have to press play again, because the longer one moment stays frozen on the screen, the more likely it is to burn itself into everything that comes after it. I was watching something on TV a few weeks ago and got a phone call in the middle of it. So I paused it, took the call, and by the time I came back into the room, the screen had gone to a screensaver. It had just been sitting there long enough that the TV decided the show was over, whether I decided that or not. And it struck me, because I'm who I am, and apparently I think about television the way other people think about parables. I remembered when we used to be able to pause a VHS tape indefinitely, for hours if we needed to. Nothing happened. The picture just sat there, waiting for as long as you wanted it to. But the newer screens, at least some of them, don't work that way. Leave the image frozen too long and it can actually damage the display. So the screensaver kicks in to protect the screen from the thing you forgot you left paused. There are times when the right response to a changed plan is exactly that, to pause. You don't have to immediately turn it into growth. You don't have to prove anything to anyone, including yourself, about how well you're handling it. But pressing play again doesn't always mean going back to the original movie. And I've been thinking a lot about the difference between an intentional pause and an indefinite one, especially because Casey said something to me this week that really challenged me on this. He said, "You keep telling people it's okay to pause, but the show is literally called Living Life Unpaused." While annoying, it was fair, extremely fair. So let's go deeper on that, because if I'm going to keep telling you it's okay to pause, I owe you an explanation for why that doesn't contradict the entire purpose of ICMM. I've never meant stop moving, never rest, push through no matter what. That would also contradict the whole point of this being about forward motion instead of punishment. So here's the answer I've landed on. An intentional pause is still an active choice. An indefinite pause happens when we stop choosing at all. You can be physically doing nothing and still be actively participating in your life. And you can be incredibly busy while being completely disengaged from it. And that's important because activity and participation aren't the same thing. You can have a completely full calendar and still be sleepwalking through your life. You can go to work, go to the gym, answer every email, make dinner, clean the house, check every box, and be incredibly active without making a single conscious choice about whether any of it is still the life you want. And you can spend an entire day sitting beside someone you love, grieving, recovering, thanking, resting, barely moving at all, and be completely present in your life. Busy isn't the opposite of paused. Present is. And I want to be careful not to define the difference by how long the pause lasts, because that's both arbitrary and, frankly, a little too hustle culture. A pause might be an afternoon. It might be a week. Grief, illness, caregiving, or burnout, a major life disruption. Those can legitimately be much longer. And there's nothing wrong or lazy about that. So the difference can't be pausing is fine, just not too long. That's not actually the point. The real difference is awareness and intention. An intentional pause sounds something like this, even if only inside your own head. I know I've stopped this for now. I know why. This is what I need right now, and I'm going to keep checking in with myself about when that changes. An indefinite pause almost never starts with a decision to quit. It starts exactly the way mine did with that TV. You didn't sit down and decide, I'm officially abandoning this program. You paused it because something else needed your attention right then. Completely reasonable. But then enough time passed that the TV essentially concluded you weren't coming back, and the screensaver took over. That's what happens to pieces of our lives too, more often than we'd like to admit. Nobody decides they're never going to write the book. Nobody decides they're giving up on taking care of themselves. Nobody sits down and formally decides they're never going to travel or change careers, make new friends, start the business, go back to school, fix their finances, date again, whatever it is for you. We pause for a completely legitimate reason, and then we get busy, and then something else happens, and then we get used to the pause. And eventually we stop even noticing that we were paused at all. And sometimes the reason one part of our life has been sitting on pause for so long is because we were so busy pressing fast forward on another one. That's what living life unpaused is actually about. It was never pause. It's don't live there by accident. There's an ICMM distinction hiding underneath all of this that I think is worth pulling all the way out into the light. A conscious pause can absolutely be your one thing for the day. If everything has gone sideways and what's genuinely within your control today is saying, I'm not solving this today. I'm going to sleep, spend time with my family, turn my phone off, grieve, rest, or give myself 48 hours before I make any decision at all. That is not you abandoning your life. That's you managing yourself. And I can manage myself was never supposed to mean I can control everything that happens to me. It means I remain an active participant in what I do next, regardless of what just happened to me. Because the opposite of living life unpaused was never resting. The opposite is disengaging. It's waking up 6 months, 3 years, 10 years down the road and realizing something that actually mattered to you got left sitting on pause the whole time because you never once consciously decided whether you still wanted it. So this episode gets one more layer, and I think it's the layer that actually ties everything together. The phlebotomist told me essentially to actively live your life. And Casey's question was, then how does actively living your life include pausing at all? And here's the answer I keep landing on. Active doesn't always mean motion. It means participation. It means intention. You can actively decide to rest. You can actively decide you're not ready yet. You can actively decide something else needs your full attention right now, and that this thing has to wait. You can even actively decide after the pause, I don't actually want to press play on this anymore. None of that is getting stuck. All of it is a decision made by you with your eyes open. I want to give you explicit permission for that last one too, because I don't think this show has said it plainly enough. You are allowed to stop something on purpose. There's a real difference between, I consciously decided this dream isn't mine anymore, and, oh yeah, I used to really want that. I guess I just stopped doing anything about it. One of those is choosing, the other is drifting. I'll add one more layer here, because I think it matters and it's fresh for me. Sometimes we think we're being active in life in the most literal sense. We get up at the same time every morning. We do the same workout, whether we feel like it or not, because that's what being healthy and disciplined is supposed to look like. But you might remember Dr. Retz a couple episodes back saying that sometimes you're doing your body more harm than good by forcing that. Sometimes your body needs actual rest, or a completely different kind of movement, or a different way of eating instead of the version of discipline you've decided you're supposed to perform. Sometimes the pause is the discipline choice, not the workaround. Pressing play doesn't always mean resuming exactly where you left off. I think that's worth saying outright, because it's not obvious. Sometimes after an intentional pause, you press play and continue exactly where you were. Sometimes you press play and go in a completely different direction than the original plan had you headed. And sometimes you press play, take one look at where you are, and realize you don't even like this particular show anymore, and you turn it off entirely. But it has to be you deciding. That's the whole through line. Living life unpaused was never hit pause. It's notice when you have, know why you're there, keep checking in with yourself, and when the reason you pause stops applying, make another decision. Continue. Change direction or consciously let it go. Just don't let inertia be the one making that call for you. So what happens when the plans change, becomes something bigger than just adapting to circumstances, which is what I thought this episode was going to be about when I started writing it. It's this. The plan changes. Sometimes you need to pause. While you're paused, you pay attention. You take in whatever new information life just handed you. You decided what you actually want now with that new information in hand. And then you make the next intentional choice. Which brings it right back to my phlebotomist. Whether she ever knows it or not, you don't have to already know exactly what your dream life looks like. But you do have to be awake enough inside your own life to actually notice what it's trying to teach you. Here's what I want you to do this week. Think of one area of your life that's currently sitting on pause. Could be small, a hobby, a habit, a friendship you've let go quiet. Could be bigger, a dream or a decision, a conversation you keep putting off having. And ask yourself honestly, is this an intentional pause or has it become an indefinite one? Do I know exactly why I paused this? And am I still checking in on whether that reason still applies? Or did I just stop paying attention to it at some point and never notice the screensaver kick in? If it's intentional, genuinely intentional, not a story you're telling yourself after the fact, then let it be paused. You don't owe it motion just because someone made you feel guilty about it. That's a real active decision, and it counts as your one thing today. But if you're honest with yourself and it's drifted into indefinite, if the reason you paused it doesn't even apply anymore and you just never came back to check, then this week, make one real decision about it. Not the whole plan, just the next move. Continue it. Change direction on it. Or consciously, on purpose, let it go. Any of the three counts. The only thing that doesn't count is leaving it for the screensaver to decide. So here's what I want to leave you with. You don't have to have your dream life fully mapped out. You are allowed to not know yet. Most of us don't, no matter how finished everyone else's plan looks like from the outside. But you do have to be awake enough inside your own life to notice what it's teaching you while it's happening, not 6 months later in hindsight when it's easier to see. This has been a hard few weeks in my house, some of it small, some of it bigger than I know what to do with yet, and one part of it that I'll be carrying for a long time. I don't have a tidy bow to put on any of it, and I'm not going to pretend I do just because it's the end of an episode. But I will tell you this. I don't think the answer, on the other side of a hard stretch like this one, is to live recklessly, because none of us know how much time we get. I think the answer is to live awake, to actually participate in the life you have, instead of sleepwalking through it while you wait for the real version to start once your plan is finally finished. Though I do think one of the biggest parts of that is getting clear on what you want in your dream life. I don't think living life on pause means squeezing everything possible out of every day, because someday we won't have one. That's exhausting, and honestly, that's just another version of pressure. I think it means being here for the day you're actually in. Making the plan when a plan helps. Changing it when the information changes. Pausing it when you need to pause. Grieving when you need to grieve. Resting when rest is the active choice. And pressing play when you're ready. And every once in a while, looking around at the life you're actually living and asking, am I still participating in this? Or did I stop paying attention somewhere along the way? Maybe that's the deepest version of living life unpaused I've landed on yet. Not perpetual motion, perpetual participation. Thank you again for joining me today. Make sure to subscribe so you're notified of new episodes. I'm here every Monday. Remember, it's just one intentional thing every day that moves your life forward. Until next week, be careful out there.